Okay, so let's get started with part 3 of this painting and kind of move forward from here and start tightening stuff up. So the first thing I'm going to do for now is turn off the lines, because the lines can give you a false sense of completion. As you can see right here, there's a lot of underpainting, but it looks more completed when the line's there. So it's just a trick of the eye kind of thing. It fools your brain into thinking that it's more complete. So let's put that aside. I'm also going to go ahead and hide the bison and work on just this stuff here as though I were doing just a landscape, and then we'll put them back in it. Okay. So I won't worry too much about this probably as far as filling that part in, but I do want to start pulling together the clouds and bringing them, you know, it's just some nice edges and contrasts, like maybe a storm had just passed by or something. Okay, so we got a couple different ways we can do that. We can stay with the cloud brush that we have, or we can switch to a few other ones that we have. This watery inky cloud brush here works pretty good for this, so let's kind of dive in and I'll show you a little bit about how some of that works. I think I'm going to use this right here as my mixing palette. So let me just, this kind of a yellowish color is really what I'm more or less looking for. Alright, so I'm going to switch over to this oil brush again. And we're going to highlight some of these clouds. The trick to highlighting these, even though a lot of this I'm about to blend back into the cloud, but the trick is not to make just one. You don't want to make one solid line, okay? Because that's just not going to look right. So, going back into here, softening this out. These are just circular motions. You can start to get a little bit of highlights in it. Like so. I am going to change these colors around just a little bit more. Still a little bit too much yellow there, purple there for me. A little bit of delay on this. Right, I'm going to go back to this cloud brush because for whatever reason I'm getting a lot of delay, which sometimes happens when I'm recording. The image kind of hesitates as you're painting. Soften this back out. I'll come back and redo this. And that's kind of the key to this, is playing with the colors so that you find the ones as you look back at it and kind of step away and come back. You'll see stuff that you like, that you don't like, that you want to soften up. You may want to darken so it's really just a matter of playing with the colors. So you get it how you like it. There we go. Now I can take this yellowish color, put just a hint of it up in the clouds. There we go. Alright, and gives us a little bit more of a brighter sky. Excuse me. Now what I'm doing here is I'm adding in some darker color, which I know seems kind of silly since I just took it out. But I want to kind of vignette the picture, which means the corners are darker. It adds just a little bit more drama to the painting. Like so. There we go. Starting to get that kind of dialed in. Alright, so now I'm going to go back and do what I was doing before. With the oil brush, but this is where I'm going to zoom in. Almost 100. Now what I'm looking for here are natural light spots, like right here. Okay. And I need to bring down this. What I want to do is only the back side of this highlight is what I want to soften out, like so. Okay. Then I can take a cloud brush and select from that softened area. some of what I want to show. You can also use ink brush. To do it, you can use the pencil, which can sometimes give you a nicer highlight because it's got that thinner line. Like so, and then I'll just use the pencil. I kind of like how that looked. And then it's just a matter of put it in, soften it out, put it a little bit bigger, soften it out. You can really start playing around with where the highlights are. And this is one of those things too that you can do this, then you can come back and do it some more, you can come back and do it some more. Fit this back on the screen here. You can really define the clouds. So for example, if you want that coming out, about like that. And you can do so. You can come up here and add where you want that to be. Again, go back to the palette knife, slowly circle it, blend it together. Sometimes making the palette knife a little bit larger helps it blend better. Okay. Like so. And put a few up here as well. Like so. You can also do the same with the dark. So for example, if you wanted to maybe add some dark in here, kind of do a little bit of negative painting, which is where you paint around something. You can do that. Again, like so. You could go back to the file brush. And then once you get these to where you want the highlights to be, okay, like so, you know, let's say that we've got these kind of where we think we like it. And this is just fun, guys. I don't know about you, but I really enjoy doing this part. You kind of can dive into it a little bit deeper and more, and really build these layers as you go. But when you've got it about where you like it, the next step that you'll want to do is come in and really define some of these. Okay, and by that what I mean, you're going to do is, let's say for example, I like this one and I like this up here, and I want to really make that noticeable. So zoom in, take your pencil, and just here and there give it a silver lining. Just where I think it would really be hitting it a lot. And again, not everywhere, because if you do it everywhere, it's going to be like, it's not going to be as important. But by doing that, you can really start making some of these pop out. Like so. And when I say not everywhere, I mean don't go all the way down. Don't do like this on all of them, you know, because it wouldn't look right. So, and then if you get any that end like this kind of abruptly, just take your palette knife and soften ever so slightly. Alright, so I think for the clouds, that's pretty good for that. Looks kind of nice from a distance. We'll come back to it. There's still more we can do, but I don't want to spend this whole time doing this. So now at the hills, we want to start making these look a little bit more like trees. So let me show you stencils. Stencils are some of my favorite things. And I've made a bunch of them. There's a bunch included in my Gumroad pack, so you can access, and this is a lot of them right here that are in that Gumroad pack. Okay, so you have a decent amount of ones that you can use and access, and I add more all the time, but I'm going to go with this one right here for now. Get that out of the way. Alright, so with the stencil, if you hold control, you see how that magnifying glass appears? You can make it large. If you take Alt, you can turn it. If you ever turn it and you don't like it, Control-Z undoes it. If you take spacebar, you can move it. And if you do Shift Control and go to the left, you can stretch it this way. If you go to the right, you can stretch it this way. So we're going to shrink this down a little bit. And we're going to refine some of these shapes to make them look a little bit more like trees. So I need this darker green right here, and go ahead and use this brush still. All I'm worried about right now are treetops, and I'm going to move this around and change the size of it as far as like stretching it, pulling it, letting it go somewhere else. that snapback it does, it's something with my pen. So I just use the mouse instead. If you right click on it, you can flip it horizontally, which sometimes can match up really well with the top of the hill that you're working on. You can start to get some decent looking trees. Because one thing to remember is that, you know, if you're doing these like pine trees from a distance are going to look a lot alike, you know, and so you just don't want this to look so alike that it looks like you used a stencil or you stamped it. But this saves you a lot of time. You just gotta be careful. That was some overspray I just got right there. So just go back to your eraser and erase it out. But that is one thing with these stencils. You can avoid that if you just go and select the tool here and then put everything inside a square. So now you won't get overspray, but if you didn't get all of it, you just hold Shift, select again, and it adds to the selection. Like so. And then I can paint. See, I can go way out here and it doesn't do anything because I've protected the stencil. But the thing is, when I move the stencil, that doesn't move with it, so I have to select this again, then I can move it. Like so. Okay. Alright, so that gives me that those tree edges that I wanted. Okay, again, those are all part of the pack, so go pick that up. And I think there are some in the smaller pack, the free pack. So I'm going to remove this stencil. I'm going to do Control D to deselect. And then I'm going to grab another stencil. And let's go with this one. And this one. Again. And actually, I don't want this one again. We'll go with this one. Okay, so again, these are small, they're off in the distance. Like so. Hit my Shift key by accident. Now what I'm going to do here, so I've selected that one, Shift, click again, drag, I've got that one selected. So I'm going to paint this in, move it, right click, remove the stencil, now what I want to do is make another layer. If I click on here, I can go down to blend mode, so I can go to multiply, I'm going to do this because I just want to save some time here with what I'm going to show you. So I've got this brush. I've still got that green, but I can go here and get a darker. Now that looks ridiculous right now because it's just super dark, right? But then I can play around with the darkness to get it where I want. I can then Alt, select that color, right click, merge layer down, remove stencil, and then I can take this brush and start painting in some negative space, but I can also go back to my tree stencil, use that, or I can also, I've got a brush, which I was going to show you in my custom brushes that I made. There's a bunch of vertical trees. So if I'm wanting to save a little bit of time, you can paint these in, because remember, it's far enough away, I'm not going to have a whole lot of detail, just enough to indicate that it's trees, because the trees aren't my main focus. I can select like so, and leave some of this space in here. I don't want to just sit here and color all this in. That would be pointless. Okay, but I can even grab a little bit of the yellow. Okay, and by doing this and selecting again and again, I start to kind of get that texture that would be my trees. I can also go with other brushes that I have. Paint in a little bit here and there, and that just throws some other texture in there to break it up, like so. And then once I've got that done, I can come back, not to this one, to my stencils. I could grab some of my other trees, add in some different textures here and there, soften it at the bottom, maybe a couple of more distinct ones that are closer. If you move it, you just hit Control-Z. Some of those colors in. And then soften it down here at the bottom again. Maybe add in just a little bit of other texture. Now, if the paint's not quote-unquote sticking, you can switch to something like the airbrush. Be careful of overspray. Zoom this out. And we're starting to get a little bit more of that look that we want. We give this just a little bit. Like so. Soften it. And there we go for that. Now we can check this real quick to see how that looks. And how much we think it's going to detract from everything. And then if we decide, hey, I want to soften it a little bit more, kind of like having it here because it's going to make this little guy right here pop out, but it's a little too much detail for that distance. So let's just redo that. Now here's a cool thing too. Let me show you this. You can take the stencil, like let's go back to those stencils, and we'll do this one. So okay, so I like that having those trees there, but I don't necessarily want them as defined. I can invert this stencil. I can Alt select that, take the airbrush, soften it some, and then I'm leaving it ever so slightly. There we go. That kind of sets that back in there. Then I can just invert again, shrink it down. just by putting a little bit of pressure through the airbrush. You start breaking up some of that and have it show. So again, zoom out, get rid of this. And we've got enough there to really hint at the hillside that we want. I mean, this is just background stuff, so we don't need to spend a whole lot of time on it. I'll go with my vertical trees one more time. Like so. But putting these right here, it kind of makes it seem like maybe that hill drops off a little bit. And it gives you that layer of perspective. There we go. Okay, so that gives us a nice start to the hillside. May come back to it and play around with it some more, but wanted to kind of show you how to get some of this laid in there for that and kind of start tightening everything up through here. So we've got some of the clouds done, we've got some of the trees done. We need to focus on these grasses next, and then we need to work some more on our bison. So let me save this and we'll jump into part 4.